Hadeed case revives decades of warnings over prison conditions by Elizabeth Gonzalez. The detention of people under the Preventative Detention Orders, PDO, including high-profile businessman Dominic Hadeed, has reopened decades-old claims about poor prison conditions, alleged weak medical support, and a system reportedly struggling to safely manage the people it holds. While complaints about prison conditions have resurfaced because of the Hadeed's detention, prison sources insist Dominic Hadeed is being housed alone at the remand prison, Golden Grove Prison, where he is sleeping well and has access to medical care. He arrived at the facility last Friday. A prison source told Guardian Media that Hadeed has occupied a cell by himself since arriving at the prison on June 26 and has been seen by prison medical staff. The source said he can access the infirmary whenever necessary. The source also claimed Hadeed is not eating regular prison meals and is instead buying items from the prison commissary. He is very health conscious, the source claimed. The source said Hadeed was picky with food and was not relying on regular jail meals. His legal team, including former Attorney General Faris Al-Rawi, visited him on Wednesday afternoon after the latest court proceedings. The source said the lawyers usually visit Dominic and Genevieve Hadeed one after the other. Efforts to contact Al-Rawi to ask about how the Hadeeds are faring in prison were unsuccessful. Genevieve is being held at the women's prison on the Golden Grove prison compound. However, another source rejected any suggestion that Hadeed is receiving special treatment. The conditions are the same, the source said. That source said all inmates are medically assessed when they enter the prison system and that health or dietary needs are managed through the prison medical officer. But the source said the prison system is operating with limited resources. It's the same thing. That is all we have to give, the source said when asked whether high-profile detainees were receiving better food or treatment. Hadeed and his wife, Genevieve, are being detained under emergency powers after police said they were investigating an alleged plot to assassinate government officials. Their detention has triggered a fresh legal battle. But the complaints about the conditions under which they were held are not new. Although Hadeed's habeas corpus complaint last week pushed the country's prison conditions back into court and public debate, existing reports, court cases, and prison officers had already shown that the state had been warned about the same problems for decades. In court filings, Al-Rawi, who filed the initial court action on behalf of the Hadeeds, alleged Dominic Hadeed suffers from sleep apnea and wears an orthopedic leg brace. He alleged Hadeed was held at the Karenage police station, where he was forced to sleep on a bare concrete slab without access to a CPAP machine because there was no electrical connection in the cell. The filings also alleged Genevieve Hadeed was held in a dirty cell with no bedding, poor ventilation, roaches, and a hole in the floor used as a toilet. The prison source said people detained under a PDO are first taken to the Eastern Correctional and Rehabilitation Center, ECRC, then placed at facilities such as the Remand Prison, Golden Grove, the Maximum Security Prison, or ECRC, depending on the risk assessment. Prison officials, the sources said, consider gang links, safety risks, medical needs, and separation issues before placing detainees. Around 10 or 11 people had been brought in under PDOs and, so far, 2 had been sent to St. Anne's for assessment after suffering mental breakdowns 2 weeks ago. One of the detainees remains at the psychiatric hospital. It is a real traumatic thing coming into the prison, the source said, adding, not everybody mentally is able to manage that. The source described the system as the best of the worst. Reports raise concerns. That is the same broader issue raised in 9 reports and several court cases over the past 73 years. Former Inspector of Prisons Daniel Kahn's 2012 report remains one of the key public documents on the state of Trinidad and Tobago's prisons. Kahn declined to comment for the story, but his report traced prison reform warnings back to the Wright Report of 1945, the Garat Report of 1963, interim reports from the 1970s, the 1977 Memorandum on the Golden Grove Remand Prison, and the 1980 Abdullah Report. The 2012 report also said several earlier recommendations were not adopted. It reviewed complaints and judicial findings about overcrowding, sanitation, toilet facilities, medical care, ventilation, exercise, and humane treatment. More than a decade after Kahn's report, the same issues continue to surface. Guardian Media identified several legal challenges and reported court filings in which prisoners and detainees complained about prison conditions, detention conditions, medical access, airing, food, sanitation, and treatment in custody. In Colin Edgehill's constitutional motion in 2004, the court found he had been subjected to cruel and unusual punishment at the remand section of the Port of Spain prison and ordered compensation of $20,550. 14 years later, Edgehill returned to court, saying the state has still not paid him. In 2008, prisoner Aladdin Muhammad challenged the Commissioner of Prisons over daily airing, a special diet and items prescribed by the prison medical officer. The court found he succeeded on the majority of the issues when the case was brought. In 2015, Raji Ali, who has been detained at Tehran Barracks since July 2025, filed a judicial review claim over daily outdoor exercise, religious instruction, food, and more humane accommodation at the Port of Spain prison. The court granted leave for the case to proceed. In 2020, the Justice Seekers Association and several remand prisoners challenged prison conditions during the COVID-19 period, raising concerns about overcrowding and health. That application was refused. More recent challenges also came from prisoners held at Tehran Barracks, where court filings and public reports raised concerns about poor ventilation, limited water and sanitation, food, medical needs, and prolonged confinement. But conditions have not been the only issue raised. Recent prison health records obtained by Guardian Media under a FOIA on March 10, 2026, show another concern. The FOIA revealed that the maximum security prison recorded 104 chickenpox cases between November 11, 2025 and January 16, 2026. The prison service said all confirmed cases were confined to the maximum security prison, while 5 prison officers also contracted the disease at that time. The FOIA stated that the prison infirmary ordered isolation, movement restrictions, separate meal collection arrangements, suspension of non-essential programs, and stronger hygiene. This was difficult due to severe overcrowding and limited resources. A previous chickenpox outbreak was reported in January 2013, affecting inmates at the Port of Spain prison's remand section and the maximum security prison, resulting in court matters being delayed because prisoners could not be transported to court. The prison system has also faced concerns about other communicable diseases over the years. A U.S. State Department Human Rights report released on January 30, 1997, warned that overcrowding in TNT's prisons had created serious health problems and that diseases, including chickenpox, tuberculosis, and HIV/AIDS, spread easily among inmates. Similar concerns about overcrowding and poor prison conditions have continued to appear in subsequent human rights reports over the years. Subsequent annual human rights reports continued to raise concerns about severe overcrowding and poor prison conditions. Reports covering 2004, 2015, 2016, 2017, and 2021 all described conditions in some of the country's prisons as harsh, unsanitary, and overcrowded. In the FOIA response, the infirmary pleaded for PPE, gloves, masks, gowns, and cleaning agents. Internal documents warned that without immediate reinforcements, the risk of nonstop transmission remained significantly high. Continuous complaints. Attorney Nicole Marriage told Guardian Media the complaints are not limited to old cases. She said her clients continue to battle in court over prison and detention conditions, including buckets and floor holes used as toilets, cells with rotting feces, roaches, rats, lack of airing time, and poor treatment, especially at Tehran. Marriage said she was very much concerned because prisoners have rights, but yet still those rights are not adhered to. She claimed some detainees, including those not convicted, are being treated as though they are not human beings. Asked whether she was optimistic about reform, Marriage said, "Honestly, I am not optimistic that change will happen because this has been going on before I have been practicing." Criminologist Dr. Randy Seepersad said the issues should not only come to the forefront because high-profile people are detained. "I really want to hasten to say that this issue of the conditions that prisoners have to undergo, especially remand prisoners for whom there is a presumption of innocence, should not really come to the forefront only because a high-profile pair of persons has been detained," Seepersad said. He said many people held on remand are eventually released without being convicted. It means, therefore, that there is a cross-section of the population who would be detained, who would be subjected to the poor conditions on remand and then released, he said. C. Prasad said prison conditions are linked to wider social problems, including reoffending. He said the old remand facility at Golden Grove was one of the worst he had seen in the Caribbean before it was destroyed during the COVID-19 period of riots and later rebuilt. But he said the wider prison system still leaves much room for improvement. C. Prasad said prisons are often viewed as successful once people do not escape. He said that view reduces prisons to a human dumping ground. He again warned that poor prison conditions can make the country less safe. Poor conditions, violence, trauma, and lack of rehabilitation can make people more damaged and more connected to criminal networks. According to him, the existing prison environment also affects officers. A recent survey, he said he did with a colleague, found that over 60% of prison officers showed diagnosable levels of post-traumatic stress disorder. Still, he remains pessimistic about major reform because spending heavily on prisons carries political risk. He believes governments may fear public backlash if they are seen to be improving conditions for prisoners. Officers claim no improvement. Meanwhile, Prison Officers Association President Gerard Gordon said the conversation around prison conditions has been the same for years. He predicts that in 100 years, the issues, warnings, and reports will be the same. Asked whether anything has changed, even in the slightest way, Gordon laughed then responded, "Ms. Gonzalez, it has gotten worse. There has been no improvement." He said the system is so strained that officers do not have uniforms. Gordon also rejected the idea that prison capacity is only about space. "These people are not boxes," he said. "The system needs cells, staff, welfare officers, infirmary officers, emergency response officers, canine units, technical staff, and proper infrastructure," Gordon listed. For it to work, Gordon said the prison service needs a heavy injection of resources, leadership, and new thinking. Vision on Mission CEO Giselle Mashana, formerly Chance, said humane prison conditions should not be treated as a comfort or privilege, but as part of justice, public safety, and rehabilitation. Humane prison conditions, it's not just about giving the person in custody a comfortable place. It's not just about comfort or privilege, she said. Mashana said if prisons are expected to return people to society better prepared, the conditions within the prison must support that. Efforts to get a response from Acting Prisons Commissioner Carlos Carraspe were unsuccessful.